So the antidote to all the traumas is do more. Take more responsibility for the quality of life in the world in general. Don't make it personal, make it godly. So Pesach, Passover, is the season of our liberation, a festival of our liberation. Came out of Egypt. Coming out of Egypt is not the same as coming out of slavery, even though in Egypt we were enslaved. But those are two really separate issues. In the Haggadah, we begin with Avodim Hayinu. We were slaves. But when we say Yetziat Mitzrayim, we're not mentioning explicitly the enslavement, just Mitzrayim. We left Egypt. We got out of Egypt. Because technically speaking, for almost a year, the Jews in Egypt were not slaves anymore. Once the plagues began, the enslavement stopped. So really, we came out of Egypt not directly out of slavery when we left Egypt. We came out of slavery when the plagues began. Each plague happened in a separate month. So there were 10 plagues, there were 10 months. So, what does it mean to come out of Egypt? Chassidus says, Egypt means restriction. The word Mitzrayim is related to the word Meitzar, which means restriction, narrow, confining. The festival of liberation means the opportunity or the anniversary of the experience of freedom from restriction, freedom from limitation. Now, of course, slavery is a restriction, a limitation, but that's an extreme and that's physical. The restrictions that we need to liberate ourselves from today is more spiritual, more internal, self-imposed. Yes, there is pressure, there's peer pressure, there's social pressure that can sometimes be devastatingly difficult to ignore. But the most common restriction is the self-imposed ones. And of the self-imposed internal restrictions, the mother of them all is the addiction to self. The addiction to self is very confining, very limiting, almost crippling. I can't, I'm not the type. It's not my main thing. It's not my strong suit. I'm not in the mood. First of all, it's so self-imposed. Nobody's doing this to you. But more than that, it seems so final. If it's not my thing, then I cannot, I will never. It's so inflexible. We actually describe it as our needs. When we start to feel like we have needs, that is the strongest restriction, the strongest enslavement that there can possibly be. I convince myself that I need something, whether it's something I need to acquire or something I need to escape from. It is more than just enslavement. It's solitary confinement. You've locked yourself in and you cannot get out. The truth is that psychology has done us a disservice. See, there was a time when we had serious problems, realistic survival problems. It was very helpful to have someone to talk to be able to express the pain, the agony, the fear. And so psychology was successful. Today, when the world is so much more affluent, our existence is not threatened, our well-being is not threatened, what are we suffering from? Today we suffer from trauma. Trauma. I had an experience left me traumatized. Almost every experience is described as a trauma. We're so sensitive, we're so delicate that we need therapy for our traumas. Let's clarify this. When there were serious problems, survival problems, and the therapy was helpful, what did the therapy consist of? Focus on yourself. Focus on your inner strengths. Focus on your true needs. Focus on who you are. Don't lose your confidence. Don't let it intimidate you. That attention to self was helpful up to a point. Beyond that point, it became toxic. The focus on self is what made us so delicate and so sensitive and so fragile that every experience that isn't positive is a trauma. Even some positive experiences are now traumatic. So we continue with the same therapy, and it's not working. Because the trauma of today doesn't need to protect the me. On the contrary, the reason I feel so traumatized is because I've been too focused on me. How does it make me feel? What does that do to me? What do I think of that? What do I feel now? We got to go in the opposite direction. We've got to get away from the me that has become so delicate. Because the more I focus on the me, the more traumatized I become. Now, what really is the problem with trauma? Why is trauma so devastating? Why is it so harmful? If we step back, most of the things that traumatize us were happening all through history, and people were not traumatized. They were hurt, maybe even damaged, but not traumatized. Meaning, it didn't prevent them from living their lives fully. They lived their life with pain, with scars, but they lived their life. And that's why they didn't call it trauma. Traumatized means I can't function. Now, what is preventing me from functioning? The distraction. Not the event, as much as the fact that the event is distracting me. We need a different kind of therapy now. We don't need to build up ourselves because the self was never attacked. Our existence is not threatened. And yet it feels like it is. Why? Too much focus on self. We have made the self so delicate that it can't handle ordinary, normal human experiences. So what's the antidote? So here's a very good example, a very good analogy. If you get thrown by a horse, every cowboy will tell you, the best thing to do is get right back up on the horse, or a horse. Because if you don't, you may never get on a horse again. So, what is the antidote to a trauma? Do what you need to do. Don't let it stop you. There is a mission for which we exist. There is a purpose for which we were created. There is a job for which we were born. Anything that prevents us from fulfilling that purpose is the enemy. In the past, we had some serious enemies, determined to not let us live out the purpose for which we were created. Like, for example, Egypt, Pharaoh said, "You are going to serve me and be my slave." That's not what we were created for. But he was determined to prevent us from living out the purpose for which we were created. He wanted to replace it with his own purpose. That's called enslavement. Enslavement means I'm not going to let you live your life. I'm going to force you to live my life, the life I choose for you. So let's be clear about slavery and freedom from slavery. We all know, everybody will quote this for you. What did Moses say? What did Moshe say to Pharaoh? Moshe came to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." That is not the end of the sentence. The God of Israel said, "Shalach es ami v'yavduni." Let my people go so they will serve me. Finish the sentence. Don't be misleading. Moshe didn't say, "Let my people go," period. He said, "Let my people go so that they can serve God." Here's how it should be read. You think that the Jews should be serving you and be your slaves? No. Let my people go so that they can serve me. So it should be read, Shalach es ami v'yavduni. We're not going from slavery to retirement or to vacation. No, we're going from the wrong service to the right service. But there's no non-service. A human being is always creative, useful, productive. There's no downtime. Like, if you fall off a horse, don't take time out, get right back on the horse. The problem with today's traumas, even not life-threatening, they feel like they are. But the reason for that is because it distracts us from our purpose. And when you're not fulfilling your purpose, it feels like you're dying. So what is the solution? If you suffer a trauma, turn your attention to the purpose for which you exist. The trauma wants you to be stuck thinking about yourself. Your purpose in life is to think about others. So if you've had a trauma, all the more reason to serve others. Make the world better. Turn outward. We're way too introverted as a result of the therapy that was once helpful, but now has become toxic. So the greatest favor that God did for us was to take us out of Egypt and give us the Torah. Again, don't stop in the middle. Don't live with a partial concept. God took us out of Egypt in order to give us the Torah and tell us what our true purpose is and what creative or productive things we can do that God really needs of us. So the antidote today to all the traumas is do more, reach out more, take more responsibility for the quality of life in the world in general. Don't make it personal, make it godly. If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic, and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there is a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it.